our esteemed panel on the stage. This session is being moderated by Mr. Amit Goel, Vice President and Country Head India at Prove. And our panel comprises of Mr. Sanjeev Moghe, President and Head Cards and Payments, Axis Bank, Mr. Vikas Bansal, Director, Amazon Pay and Head of Payments and FS at Amazon, Mr. Miten Sampat of CRED, Ms. Vidya Pradeep, Executive Vice President, Head of Credit Cards, Debit Cards Portfolio and PayZapp for HDFC Bank, and Shri Sachin Sharma, Deputy General Manager, Reserve Bank of India. Let's welcome the panel with a round of applause, everyone. And over to you, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, they say it takes a village to do something big. And, I'm very happy that today we have people who have built payments and cards and other businesses at banks. We have fintech companies and we have somebody from the regulatory side as well. So it's quite a group. Obviously there are more types of people who actually sort of help to create a village and create something big, such as telecom infrastructure, such as government. And we have been hearing over the last 1.5 days from people from those sectors as well. The topic today that we have is very interesting. We are talking about already, I think India is taking a lead in payments in terms of, the technology, in terms of how, like 1 billion plus people can use payments anywhere, anytime. But I think we will actually sort of take it to the next level in this discussion and talk about the challenges, the opportunities and various things which are there. I think where I will start with, and I would actually ask everyone to speak on this topic, is that we have some amazing systems, right? We have UPI, we have Aadhaar-enabled payment system, BBPS, there's work happening on the B2B payments. There's so many things happening in the sector. I would like each one of you to talk about something that you are really excited about, or you think that that's a great example of the strides we have made in payments. Maybe Vidya, we can start from you.
You're able to hear me?
Yes.
I think that overall, if you see most of the volumes, digital volumes, I think for most people in this room, we would know how everything is crossed miles ahead, even during the COVID period. Even when we had like impact on spends, etc., digital payments is hitting the roof. Of course, with UPI leading. And I think a lot of the initiatives that were taken where we thought that these might take us some time to scale, we are seeing India taking a lot of this and moving ahead very fast. So one of the examples are also tap and pay transactions that we see on credit cards, or if it is the volumes that we see on, despite everything, COVID, credit card market has hit about 1 lakh crores and above a month. And Bharat Bill Pay, which we work very closely with to drum up volumes, we've seen huge growth in the last 1 year. We are seeing tier 2, 3 locations, even in the bank, wanting to come and make their bill payments online, which was not happening so much. It is a lot of integration work that's happened behind the scene by a lot of fintechs, banks, etc. But Bharat Bill Pay system is, I think, hitting about 17,000 crores a month. So it just goes to show that even one of the use cases as in bill payments is growing leaps ahead. So I think almost every product, every digital solution has a great story. In fact, the payment vision also states that most of the form factors will grow anywhere between 30 to 50%.
Right. Thanks, Vidya. Vikas?
Yeah, hi. So first of all, really glad to be here. And, this is just vibrant conference and just loving it. In terms of, Amit, you mentioned that there's so much innovation that India has already seen, right? With UPI, APS, BBPO, there's so much going on. And we are, in fact, at the cutting edge now when we look at the fintech and payments around the world. And what's really heartening to see is that even within what we have today, we are continue to innovate. And there is one example, which is UPI, right? We all know it's really powerful and it's really working well. But within that, there's one thing that I'm very excited about is if you go back like 5 to 7 years back, prepaids, was really big thing. But what was the issue with prepaid was that it was on closed loop network, right? and 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 the companies had to build their own proprietary networks. But what I'm excited about is now through UPI on how working with industry and the regulator, we've enabled interoperable on UPI, right? And now if and then PPI to us is really solving the digital payments for Bharat. When a customer, we know when they don't have a functional bank account, or is it just too hard to set up a regular UPI, or the problem is that they earn in cash and they spend in cash, there the prepaid instrument becomes very powerful. And guess what? Now you can use it on any QR in the country. It's even more powerful. So I think there's a lot of innovation, but this one is I'm very excited about is now not only bank payments, but now we've taken it to prepaid accounts. Now we're taking to credit cards, RuPay credit cards, and just continues. And when we continue on that journey is when we will see like almost like digital India, right? That we all envision. So that's one example that very close and something that at Amazon Pay we are very invested behind it. So.
No, the India public goods, digital public goods is a very good framework as opposed to a lot of proprietary models which exist in the US and other countries.
Exactly, and it is wonderful.
Yeah. Sachin sir.
Very good afternoon. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So as we address this August audience in the month of September, there are a few things that I would like to say. Apart from congratulating the organizers, it's difficult for a regulator to pinpoint a particular success story. But since our focus is to look at the larger picture and to see where the larger masses are benefited, I would say the goal of financial inclusion is something that we have been able to accomplish through this fast and swift pace of growth of digital payments. And how it is, like in NACH, they say that 245 crore direct benefit transfers, in fact, government had released on their website, is that 9 million DBT payments almost every day were being done last year. And if you would realize there were issues because there were leakages in those DBT payments, and that have been plugged in through the onset or through the onboarding of digital payments for that particular route. So that has actually benefited the masses a lot. Apart from that, the QR story, yes, in 2020 when we came out with interoperability circular, the number of QR codes which was roughly around 2 crores in March 2020 has now gone to around 20 crores. And what it has benefited, or means the section of cross-section of people, is not just at the payers end, but at the payee end. So millions of merchants who were not onboarded into digital payments domain before the wide-scale proliferation of QR codes, they have also been onboarded into this particular domain. So these are a few things that I would like to start with.
Thank you, sir. That was very helpful. And Amit, thanks for having me on this panel. Folks, I'm with CRED. I think the example that comes to my mind, which is the most exciting one, is actually all this infrastructure that we have, which is available for large institutions, small institutions, government, startups. I think that's really the most exciting thing that I see. I think this conference here is a great example of the fact that we have thousands of companies innovating on top of this infrastructure and really taking us leaps and bounds ahead of most other countries, right? I lived in the US for many years. The cost of moving money in the US is a really bad tax, and it actually hurts people who are the least fortunate. And so I think if you look at most of the infrastructure that we've created here and the scale of startups and the scale of market cap that's creating for everyone in this room and outside this room as well, I think that's really the biggest success story. And I think India, therefore, is going to be the largest sort of source of innovation in payments for many, many countries. And so to me, that's the most exciting part from all of this.
Right. A taxi driver in Singapore once told me that it's easier to innovate in a 1 BHK and clean it up and do many things. But when you have this Taj Mahal, it's very hard. And we have like 134 crore Indians who have a digital identity today. It's doing it at this scale is what is amazing, right? With all of these platforms that we have.
And just imagine, you couldn't have this. I mean, look at the scale of this event. Boss, there are thousands of people here and all innovating on top of this infrastructure. If this infrastructure didn't exist, like half the story would be,
right.
It would not even happen.
Right. Sanjeev, sir.
Yeah. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of strange speaking like this. Nobody's over here. But I think quite a few things. One is just this place is quite amazing.
Yeah.
The look and feel, and you can go to Vegas, participate in Money 2020, and this is as good, better, and obviously great to have all of us Indians here, right? Pretty proud moment for all of us. I think to the question you had, I think there are a few ways to look at what payments does. Oftentimes we look at payment as an output of the fact that we are doing a transaction. What we don't realize what it is leading to. The country now is a $3 trillion plus dollar-wise economy. And if you look at just digital payments, I'm removing all payments which are, let's say, B2B, NEFT, RTGS, you remove IMPS because that's largely a P2P transaction. You just look at UPI, you look at cards, and all of this if you take together. Today, payments is close to 41% of India's economy. I'm not saying that's the contribution to the economy because this is flow. GDP finally is a measure of how big the economy is. But fact is, this number was what 2 years back? India was close to, I think, a 2.5, 2.6 trillion then. It was 17%. That 17 became 26 as the economy stayed stagnant, reduced a bit in FY21. Last year, India has crossed 3 trillion. This measure has crossed 41%. Now that's huge. What it is doing is actually two things. One, payment by itself, and once you take out the categories which are P2P, in essence is a commercial transaction. I am paying for something. I'm able to pay much faster now. I'm able to pay to almost everybody as compared to very few merchants earlier, for example. And third part is, to a large degree, it's secure. We'll talk about this, I think, when we get down to fraud topic later on. Second part, this means as that payment happens, the economy is humming and buzzing. So the economy grows. Second part, it also formalizes that economy. So our ratio of formalization, let's say when we were 1.5 trillion or 2 trillion and 2.5 trillion to what it is now when it's 3 trillion is far higher. It actually, therefore, payment becomes very, very important, not only because it's taking out from the GDP, it's only a byproduct, it's actually leading to that GDP growth in itself. Once you look at it that way, it places a far higher responsibility on all of us here, all of us here, all of us in this venue itself, and obviously lots of us who are not here, but people working on this outside. I think that's the context in which I look at it. Once you look at it that way, it has to be a digital public good. It can't be proprietary, it can't be private, left to certain systems which then by definition become either monopolistic or definitely oligopolistic. Yeah, that's my context.
Very well said. Now, with this quality of speakers, it will be injustice to the audience if we keep drinking the Kool-Aid and talk about all the success and all the good things. So let me switch the gears. Let's talk about the difficult things, right? So the topic given to us was e-payments everywhere, for everyone, anytime. Now that actually comes with a lot of challenges, right? One, fraud. That is something we don't talk about much as an industry or as a nation, right? We talk about a lot of success. Then there are people who do not have internet access, people who do not have smartphones. So I want to touch on these three topics. Maybe Vidya, we can start with you. Yes.
I think this will get tackled. It's already getting tackled. See, I think, like Sanjeev just quoted, look at the numbers we are talking about. Look at the scale that we are driving. Definitely at those levels, you're going to have, as an absolute number, you look at it, there is fraud itself is of two kinds. There are actual frauds and then there's abuse. You are bound to have a lot of innovation in that zone as well, and it's happening. We see it, especially social engineering, where you tempt the customer and then you get him to transact and then you don't deliver the goods. And so we are very clearly seeing absolute numbers going up, but FTS rates as an industry for all form factors, they are manageable. It is not skyrocketing. And I think everybody is making a lot of investments to make sure that whichever platform we talk about, whether it's a mobile payment instrument or it's a credit card or it's a debit card, I think all issuers, we've also invested heavily in centralized risk management system, PRM, and their central fraud repository that the regulators are talking about. So I think it is going to get tackled. I would say that it is growing as absolute numbers, but as a percentage of the total volume that you're doing, it is still very, very decent and manageable right now. And I think it will get tackled very well in the coming couple of years as well. To the topic that you spoke of, which I think is very popular topic amongst most of us who are trying to solve, is even as a bank, how are we going to give a payment instrument to a customer who doesn't have a smartphone? I would say the population that doesn't have internet is there. And if you look at the payments vision paper that's come out, or most of the efforts that a lot of us are involved as banks in a lot of common solutions as well to look at what are we going to do for smartphone users. And I think non-smartphone users, you have offline payments, which is in the sandbox mode right now. But I think it is something that will unveil itself as another big solution in the coming 2 years, where there will be consumers who will be able to make payments even offline. And there'll be a lot of use cases. Initially, it will start with QR. It might be wallet-based. But I'm sure that, in the coming couple of years, like how quickly we are all innovating, offline, making offline payments is definitely going to be a reality. I think most banks, and we are definitely working on it. And for a lot of customers, they're liking, when we do consumer research, they're liking voice-based payments as well. So I think the more especially in tier 2, 3 cities, when we've reached out and speak about it, it's coming out as a very comfortable solution for them. And I think if we have good solutions and we scale, we make sure that they're aware of it. I think we have, in another 2 years, I see both of it picking up.
Yeah, voice payments are interesting. Sachin sir, if you could say something about the topic.
Definitely. So, first of all, this topic itself, e-payment for everyone, everywhere and every time. This is the theme of our Vision 2025. And I can take a little bit of pride in stating that I coined this catchphrase. But apart from that, but it's not something that we have envisaged just for next 3 years. We have been traveling this road for some time now. And for non-smartphone users, which is roughly 40 crore plus population or users in this particular country, the UPI 123 Pay was launched by our governor in March 2022. The uptake will definitely be in due course of time, because UPI was launched in 2016, and I think the juncture at which it is now, it has been over a period of 5-6 years. So even UPI 123 Pay, you can't expect that overnight or within a matter of couple of months it will reach the same stage. Yes, we have started traveling along that path, and we will ultimately reach some destination, but give it some time. Apart from that, if you consider that areas where there is no internet connectivity, so we also came out with the framework for offline payments, small value retail payments. That was in January 2022. Based on that framework, earlier it was allowed only for transit, but for retail payments it was extended in January 2022. And this National Common Mobility Card, which is a product launched by NPCI, their small offline purse was sitting on that particular card, and offline payments were happening, but only for the transit purpose. Now the same purse gets this offline wallet, which is sitting in that card, can now be used for retail payments as well. But to enable that payment, the acceptance infrastructure needs to be created. So roughly 65,000-70,000 odd POS machines have been enabled for that, and it will grow over a period of time. But apart from that, I think IDFC has pushed one solution in the regulatory sandbox, where they are testing a particular product of theirs, which will be riding on the QR code. So, and I think in due course of time, more and more solutions, because the framework is device agnostic, channel agnostic. So we have created a lot of scope for innovators in the market to come out with their own solutions, but they need to be interoperable. That's the need of the hour. And apart from that, everywhere. So everywhere, this offline framework takes care of it. Now we are also traveling beyond our geographical boundaries. UPI is the QR code based P2M payments are being accepted in Bhutan, Singapore and UAE, and this is just a beginning. I think in next 1 year we'll see quite a good traction, and some other countries also being roped in. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Sanjeev sir, anything to add to this?
So 2 parts. Let me take the fraud part first, and then I'll go on to the everyone, everywhere part. I think fraud, Vidya did say, the fraud rates in India are significantly lower than the Western world. RBI has ensured over I think almost last 10-12 years, all regulations. First is OTP, 2FA for e-com, chip and pin card, then contactless 2,000 limit increased to 5,000. Now tokenization has ensured that India is, I think, at the forefront of all of these regulations. Europe used to be slightly ahead. Now, frankly, with tokenization coming in, I think we'll be ahead of Europe. Europe itself is the most secure kind of geography in terms of digital transactions. Second part, UPI by design obviously is a tokenized account, so that part ensures it. However, we have to understand in India, the population we are taking it to is massive with all levels of literacy. So it's not about ensuring it's safe in Nariman Point, it's also ensuring it's safe in Bastar with all of those calls going from Jamtara. So I think in that context, if you look at it, the regulations and the environment will have to be far more secure. It's a walk. The fraud rates in India are better than some of the most of the rest of the world, but even 4 to 5 basis points, let's say on cards fraud to sales or UPIs, I think hitting 1 now, will need to be significantly lower because it's not about what those rates are. Those rates look good on an Excel sheet. The guy who loses that 20,000 rupees, the guy who loses that 5,000 rupees, that becomes a problem. And that then means he says, oh, cash is better. Let me just go back. I think there are some of these things we need to understand at a different level. Finally, technology will ensure answers, but technology by itself does not take calls, people take calls. I think once you understand that context and the linkages, we will keep walking down, partly driven by regulatory changes, partly what all of us as players need to do. I think that's the first context on FTS. So India is better than rest. That's not good enough with the population depth and just the kind of variety that we have over here. On the everyone, everywhere, every time, I think it's very, very interesting juncture. In fact, yesterday when I was thinking of this theme, I realized, let's say 10 years back, we would have given somebody a theme in bank or any of us, saying NEFT transaction should operate on card. We would have said, this is science fiction and not possible. How can a transaction which is happening on banking rails dovetail into cards? Then see what has happened in India. So you had NEFT, there was then an IMPS version. IMPS was given a different UI, UX with UPI. That's what it is, let's say 5 years back. Suddenly, and there is a parallel cards industry which is running. Then you say, I can do UPI on cards. Now just imagine this is happening in front of us. And sometimes we go back and say, oh, this is what happened then 500 years back. It's happening in front of us. There is an IMPS transaction which is now hitting card rails. And it is going to work. Got launched yesterday. Some of us are joining. All of us will join obviously, and we hope to join pretty shortly. But fact is, this is real science fiction happening, made reality in front of us. That's the opportunity. Once you do it, smartphone, non-smartphone, I think it's not so much about can you enable, it's about doing, the experience has to be smooth. The non-smartphone population by definition is lower levels of literacy, stroke illiterate. How do you take this feature to them? How do you make them understand this is available? Is the answer voice? Is the answer text? Is the answer Varnak? I think we need to figure out those answers. Those answers may not come in a day. UPI took off smarter because people were already smart on smartphones. The rest of the population is also smart. It's just that the language is different. So some of those aspects I think will address the everyone part. Everywhere is started, I think yesterday 3 countries, and it will keep going further. We used to see, you go to Greece, you go to some place and you see those stickers of China Union Pay and you can pay. You used to wonder, India ka kab hoga? Now we are there, right? So it started off, and obviously whatever you start off, you'll keep walking down the path. Every time is fine. I think every time today you can do a transaction, NEFT is 24/7, IMP. So all of this is anyway there. I think the every deal and pay more. That's important. Obviously, it's always got to be responsible, but I think that there is reasonable understanding in the industry today. But that is a very, very exciting opportunity. So I don't see it as counterpoints. It's not east and west and all that stuff, etc. This is all going to play with each other very, very closely together.
Existence. And cash is also not. Yeah, Miten, you want to say?
I actually, just to, Vidya, you want to go first? I actually think the linking of the UPI network and credit is actually going to lead to phenomenal growth. And actually in the last couple of years, I think the numbers Sanjeev said, these are all big numbers on big bases, right? These percentage points are not on small base. So I actually think that the linking of these systems will just massively accelerate the need for credit cards in the mind of the customer. The safety factor also in UPI is considered to be, great. And so I actually think that we're in a moment of actually massive acceleration. I think we're at the starting point, and it's going to be up and to the right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Sanjeev. I think we are all extremely, we want to push all form factor of payments. And I think if you see what's happened in the last 3 years, and it's there in both RBI data, any bank data, I think what's really getting compressed is cash withdrawals from the system. What's getting compressed is checks. Payments Vision calls out that it will become eventually 0.25%. So with everything increasing for cards, I would say very, very exciting times on credit cards, because we are all doing great numbers. It's come in the recent articles about 40-50% growth rates from even last year, huge amount of consumption. And if we go to the core of what credit card solves, it is extremely aspirational as a product, and we want the economy to grow. We want consumers to aspire to have a credit card, to have a credit-free period. And at the core of it, a lot of consumers, a lot of Indians want credit. So it plays at the heart of that. So we see a lot of use cases expanding. Like we called out, commercial payments is becoming very big. Retail credit cards, a lot of the young professionals, a lot of the college kids also aspiring to want to have a credit card. And in the recent times, we are also seeing a lot of the self-employed community becoming a very strong use case. I mean, most of them want proper business solutions on a credit card. So MSME rollouts that are happening by all banks addressing that segment. So I think it is very, very exciting times for even credit cards. The volume speaks for it. The top line, if all of us are doing together, speaks for that. And I think most of us are working on a lot of partnerships also to drive that growth. So I think it's good times for all form factors, I would say.
Yeah, partnerships has been really, really, really good in India. Vikas, bringing it back to you. So again, let's talk a little bit more about the challenges, right? I'm still not satisfied with the discussion we had so far on that. Can you talk about what are the challenges in, say, P2P payments, merchant payments, from a non-bank perspective, if you can throw some light?
Sure. So first of all, like as you said, Amit, we talk a lot about the successes, right? And we had phenomenal success in India. But any success comes with the challenges, and those challenges are true and real today. And I'll talk about a few of them today, right? So the first challenge is with the success rate, still with the success rate. So when I, was part of the India journey, almost 1 in 2 transactions used to fail, right? And I remember even in e-commerce, it was even higher. When we fast forward to today, 1 in 10 is still failing, right? Even in UPI today, our success rates are about 90% at a total level. Now, when you compare it, so that's the success rates when the customer actually initiates and completes the transaction, but there's a lot of times the payment is not available, right? And then my guess is that's another 10%. So almost 20%, or other transactions, and 2 in 10, that are still kind of failing or not available. And in a system where we have phenomenal rise in payments, where Sanjeev said 40% of the economy is kind of on digital payments. The payments just needs to work and work and work, right? Work everywhere, anytime, and anywhere. So we have to collectively solve for the success rates problem, because what we learn is when the customer payments fail and the monies kind of get stuck, is that's a very, very moment of anxiety. It leads to a lot of issues with trust, like should I really trust digital payment system, and should I just go back to cash, because cash always works. So, and then I think there are a lot of initiatives. What's good and heartening is there are a lot of initiatives that are sort of envisioned now that will address this problem. UPI Lite is one that problem, because a lot of success rates were because if internet is not available, right, or there is issue on the bank side or on the network and PCA side, and so and then also a lot of times customers don't remember the pins and other things, right? I think we are on it, but then there's still some real challenges on success rates that we still have to take to really make sure that it is working and working 100% of the time. So to me, that's number one, right? Number two, which is also very close to everybody's heart here, is around business model, right? While we've really made leaps and bounds in terms of adoption, customer adoption, but we still are challenged in terms of the business model and commercials, right? And something that my fundamental belief is that if there is a value that's getting added in the ecosystem, right, then everybody should participate and get part of that value. So there is a tremendous amount of value where customer was earlier paying cash, in terms of counting cash, delaying sales, long lines, all of it, right, is gone, and then now you can pay instantly and get out of the store. And if there's a value that's added to the merchant, to the entire ecosystem, there should be some value. And today it's kind of debated, but I think something that we have to really make sure that it cannot be so expensive that nobody adopts it, but it cannot be where it is today. So I think we have to collectively solve for what is that. There's so many stories, right, when you look at other developed markets where you can pick up from and then sort of see it. But I really think that if the commercials or business model does not exist, then you will not see the innovation in say 5 years from now that we see today, because that has to continue. So the commercials is the second part, and the third challenge is also on awareness and customer education, right? We discuss about frauds and how India is not really one India. I think hundreds of India, right? And each market has their own set of challenges in terms of literacy, in terms of digital adoption, in terms of all of these things, and awareness is a huge problem. I come from a tier 3 city in India, and people there, when you go and talk to them, they're just afraid of using anything digitally, right? Or just even adopting it, because they see like, don't know what's going to happen anytime I link something to my bank account. The money gets out, right? Immediately, instantly, and all my savings are gone. So the awareness, and while we've made tremendous amount of progress, but I don't think we've still hit 200 million customers. I think we're still in the 150 million customers that are using digital payments today. And then we have 500 or north of 500 million that have smartphones, right, and using digital content today. So there's a huge push we have to give to really educate customers in those of the benefits of digital payments, of why they're safe and secure, and how they can simplify, your life, right? Because people in my town still go and sort of stand in front of the queue and pay their electricity bill, where they can do from the convenience of their home. So I think this customer awareness and education, and then they also get prey to frauds, right? Fraudulent calls all the time, and then we've all of these stories that we hear every day. So as an industry, we have to also really up the ante on customer education and awareness, which I think will provide a trust. So those were I think the top 3 challenges that I see from my vantage point that we need to really solve to take this to the next level.
Very well summarized. Miten, from your perspective, the challenges?
I actually have a very simple one point. I think all of us, again, we're all sort of from the industry, and we talk in very technical terms, and AEPS and NEFT and RTGS and UPI and all this technical mambo jumbo, right? Normal customer doesn't care about all this. Normal customer cares about a magical, simple payment experience, right? And so ultimately, in my view, that's where the biggest challenge is. What is the killer, encapsulation of making all this completely invisible, right? Payment should actually be invisible. It should be safe, invisible, available everywhere. And so if you look back, right, I think credit cards was one example of that, right? Like if I tell you, if I woke you up, in the 90s, and if you were born in the 70s, and I said, oh, I'm going to give you a card which you can swipe anywhere and buy anything in any part of the world, that would feel like magic, right? Because actually it's actually indistinguishable from magic, right? And that's the same thing now you're seeing with UPI, right? Which is from your phone, you can scan anything and you can pay. And that's again a great sort of, encapsulation. So in my view, I think to some of the points that Sanjeev made around getting more people into the system, because the points that you made around taking the 200 to 500, will actually come from a lot of use case simplification, making it easy for people to say, yeah, this is the better way to do it, this is a smarter way to do it, and you're missing out by not doing this, right? Whenever new innovations come by, you've seen adoption in India is crazy. When short video came, when TikTok came, we are the fastest to adopt it. So to me, it's not about throwing these terms at customers, कि तू ये करेगा, उधर करेगा, इधर करेगा, ये system है, वो system है. Boss, what's the benefit? Why do I care? And I think to a large extent, I don't think we're doing enough on that.
So I'm going to ask you to also talk about what does the future of payments look like? Are you looking at new technologies or new stuff coming up?
I think I'll speak a little bit from my perspective as a user and my wish list. I think that there are three large things that are going to happen, right? I think one that Vidya, you spoke about in your excitement around tap and pay, right? It's one of those magic experiences, right? You take your phone, you tap, money goes, no need to worry about it. And there's a lot of personalization that can happen. There's a lot of safety that can happen. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, right? So one is that dimension of just making it far easier to use. And I think, UPI Lite is a good example. I'm hoping UPI Lite will also enable tap and pay at some point. I'm sure Sachin, you're thinking about it and the department's thinking about it. So one is the simplification of how to use it. I think the second is actually bringing down costs. And while I think a lot of my peers in the industry will think that costs are already very low, I think all of us will win a lot more if the acceptance networks and the acceptability and the interest in accepting just keeps going up and up and up. And we'll find ways to make money in other formats. So I think the reduction of costs even further is really, I think very important. And I think the last one is that I think the cost of credit over time also needs to come down. And again, I think going back to how Sanjeev, you explained the progress of the country in many ways, right? When I was a young adult, at that point, the number of profiles on the bureau was less than 100 million. Now we're charting 400 million. So our ability to underwrite, our ability to sort of make credit available and improve people's lives, like what does credit ultimately do? It enables people to get an experience today which they would have otherwise had to wait for a longer period of time. And I think that dovetails right back into India's GDP growth. And you can see in most markets, most developed markets, consumer credit penetration is directly correlated to GDP growth. So to me, these are three things, just to experience, acceptability, and reducing cost of credit.
Very interesting. Because anything to add, especially on future technologies or stuff that we have not seen yet?
Yeah, so no, it's very exciting in terms of the future ahead. So there's one that's very close to me is, right, when we look back, we all used to pay in cash, right? Then there came cards and made life a lot more easier for everyone. And then came mobile phones to say, like, look, can I pay through my mobile and I don't even have to carry my wallet, right? And it's all there on my phone. And I still feel like the next frontier to me is also voice-based payments. And I'm seeing it live with me that now even I find it convenient to sort of open the app and look for it and then sort of touch and then pay, right? It's a lot of steps. And as opposed to this, I can just talk and say like, hey, in our case, Alexa, just pay my bill, and it just happens, the magic happens with the same level of security, with the same level of two-factor authentication, with the same convenience. Now you just talk to someone and just everything is done, right? And hey, just buy me something, pay my bill, do this, order me food, any of those things. So I really think the next frontier is on voice-based payments. And something that I'm very excited about, we are doing, a lot of use cases within Amazon Pay, but something as an industry is some, where we can really leapfrog in terms of convenience, providing convenience for consumers and businesses, right, to make payments. The other one is tap and pay, and I think Miten touched on that. Uh, the thing is, any type of digital payments, who are we fighting against? We're fighting against cash. And cash just works, and it's very convenient, right? From a customer standpoint, you just take it out and then you just pay, and it works 100% of the time. And similarly, when you look at some of our experiences, still there are multiple steps, right? When you measure it from taking out your wallet, giving cash, and then it's done. So I think tap and pay is one such powerful experience. When we get it on our phone, is something that makes it as convenient as cash. And I do these simple time and motion studies where I look at it, right, compared to when I'm paying in cash versus what I'm paying on digitally, whether we're paying on, I think tap and pay is one such experience which comes very close to it. So and voice is another one which comes even better than paying on cash, right? So I personally, and then there's always, more stuff on decentralized finance and everything that I don't want to mention, but I think the two that immediate ones that are very exciting that we are getting behind is one is voice-based payments and two is tap and pay payments.
On the voice-based payments, just to clarify, are you talking about the one involving voice biometrics?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So today what we do is in our own ecosystem where you can just talk to Alexa and pay anything, right? What we are saying is we need more interoperable standards where instead of your PIN, your voice biometrics become the authentication, the level of authentication. And then when this happens, it's very powerful, right? Your whether it's biometric, your fingerprints, then your eye retina, and then your voice. Voice is a very, very powerful authentication, and it's very, very personal to you, right? With a very low any type of fraud rates or anything, because you're talking to live voice. So I really think that if we can really solve it as an industry, will be the next frontier to really raise the convenience of payments to the next level.
Very interesting.
So just on a lighter note, so you were trying to say that if you ask Siri to pay on behalf of Alexa, that would also be possible?
Yes, of course.
Siri and Alexa say,
yes, of course. Yes.
So actually on that note, from a regulatory perspective, what are the viewpoints and initiatives regarding payments and settlement as we move into the future, as we think about how to grow it even further?
Yeah, so we have been talking about the vision document, and there are 5 goalposts identified for that. 5 I's, those catchphrases, we like them. So it's innovation, integrity, inclusiveness, institutionalization, and internationalization. So on the integrity part of it, we have been talking about frauds. So I think in UPI, what is the biggest enabler is that when you try to make the payment, you enter the VP or you scan the QR code, and what it fetches for you is the real account name of the payee. That gives you a trust that the person you're going to pay is actually the right recipient or the beneficiary. In NEFT or few other payment systems, the instances of frauds or instances of, you can say, the funds going to unintended beneficiaries, because it's account number based payment transfer. If a person by mistake or inadvertently enters a wrong account number, the funds end up going to a wrong beneficiary. So if we can have a similar kind of facility, pay lookup within NEFT or other kind of payment systems, that is one thing that was proposed there. Apart from that, something that is envisaged is digital payment protection fund, how it's going to pan out. But yeah, if we can have some sort of you can say consumer protection through that fund, it's what we're going to look into it on a bigger scale. Then on the inclusive part of it, how PIDF, which has almost created a good acceptance infrastructure within 1.5 years of its operationalization, January, and it has almost 3.5 to 4 times overshot its achievements. The intended targets were almost 30 lakhs, creation of 30 lakh touch points a year. More than 1 crore plus has already been created. So how we can broaden the scope of PIDF? Because yesterday, if you would see during the governance launch, one of the partner who was there with UPI 123 Pay, he had asked that if the cost of operationalization of some of the modules in UPI 123 Pay is high, so what can be done? So if something can be thought on similar lines within PIDF. This is just loud thinking on my part, how it's going to pan out, but then the scope needs to be revisited. And on terms of innovation, definitely we have traveled some part, but with the help of geotagging, how more we can go ahead in terms of reaching those geographies where so far we have not been able to touch upon. With the help of industry, a lot of fintech players are there. Maybe with new innovative technology, we'll just be prescribing the frameworks, but it's you who have to come ahead and make use of that framework to reach out those untapped geographies as of now. Apart from that, institutionalization. A payment advisory council has been, you can say, envisaged in that. So it will be, if as I understand it's going to come out, is that there will be players from the industry, some experts who will be roped in, and maybe it can be a project specific or it can be a permanent standing advisory body. Let's see how it comes out. But then they will be giving some inputs on a particular policy initiative if it is envisaged. And then those initiatives can be factored in by the apex body, which is the board for payment and settlement systems at RBI, while taking some policy initiatives. So that's going to increase the, you can say, the stakeholder partnership as we go ahead. And in internationalization, we are going to, I think 3 countries we already talked about, and handful of countries we're already reaching out to, but we are, I think, quite aggressive in our intent that our domestic payment systems as digital public goods should reach out to as many countries as possible, making life easier for our diaspora there, for NRIs there, while they send remittances, and for our tourists as well. Indians like traveling. I think apart from China, Indians are the second largest globetrotters. So as we go out, we can use our own apps rather than buying forex cards for that purpose. So this is something that I have.
Right. In fact, on the last point, I think Sanjeev was also mentioning, I have myself also seen, from Times Square to New York taxis to Dubai Mall to everywhere, right? We see these Chinese apps with, which allow you to pay with, QR code or other. This question is actually open for everyone, that is there an opportunity, a really big opportunity to export our payment technology now? And, initiatives have already been made, but anything else which can happen?
Anything else which can happen is that as and when it is rolled out, more and more expats over there, they start utilizing it. And I think COVID maybe pulled us down because the globe trotting habits were curtailed a bit. But I think in the countries where Indian tourists go, and mostly in European countries and in the Middle East, where most of our workforce lies, I think that they're going to take benefit of it. With the UAE and other countries, the P2M payments have already been enabled in UAE. But I think UK is also looking on a similar kind of partnership. So as we start entering the European territory, so you can see traction going over there. And there, means even the South American countries, even North America, they have displayed some sort of interest in our UPI framework. So how the partnerships are going to unfold, whether it will be direct integration or they're going to adopt the specifications, that time only will tell. But yeah, our digital public goods are something that we can definitely export.
Miten, you wanted to add something?
I just want to say something funny actually. I think that if this was a private company building this, it would already be, probably $100 billion company, right? Like, at some point we have to wonder, government's doing a great job building the infrastructure, but actually taking this overseas probably will work well as a commercial enterprise. And I'm sure a lot of my VC friends in the crowd will happily fund it. It's actually pretty phenomenal if we get it out there, right? Vidya agrees as well, so.
Yeah, we also fine with the idea. There are 3 modes of partnerships: network to network agreements, central bank to central bank, and
so
sovereign.
TPG is right here to fund you, right here.
Sovereign to sovereign. But it depends on what kind of partnerships are envisaged by the partnering countries. Their jurisdictions also have to agree. They're also taking caution steps in this domain because it's not easy.
Anybody wants to add to this, or any departing thought, last thoughts?
Just one, I think on the challenge part, I missed out my chance. I think one part we have to understand is there are two wheels to the payment infrastructure. Right? One is the issuing side, second is the acquiring side. The challenge today, one of the challenges is the acquiring side, there is no money at all, whether it's UPI, whether it's cards. I think that's something we have to look at as we are deepening. PIDF is definitely a fantastic measure on that side, but it's still not the core profitability in itself. I think that's something we have to, if the grease of the wheel comes off, it does get creaky. If you have to make it secure, you have to make it hold the kind of TPSs we need to look at that side of it. I think that's something we will look at separately, but that's one challenge which definitely does kind of hold us back. To what extent, I don't know.
Right. You know, we have 30 seconds left. I will just say a couple of things that I learned like 10 years back when we started, you know, building a fintech platform. And so one thing is that nobody gets up in the morning and thinks about making a payment today. Like, it's not something that you get excited about. And here we are, right? 10 years down the line, so much technology has been built, so many use cases. We are growing so fast. I think it will be very interesting to watch out, how some of the stuff that you guys talked about, which will come in the future, and about the business models and all of that. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for all your inputs.
Just one last funny thing is that you do think of making the payment as the first thing you get up if it's your last date of a credit card payment.
You just did an ad for CRED, I think.
We'll remind you on time, don't worry.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Come on, the number of people that are here in the room. Let's have a louder round of applause for that discussion. Thank you so much to the panelists, to this panel for this panel discussion.